Live on WFLA Now. This is Run for Fun with running enthusiast Leigh Spann.
Let's go. All right. Welcome back to the Stream Center here at WFLA Now for this week's episode of Run for Fun. Now, this show is designed to give you the tricks and knowledge to make running and walking more fun. That way, you enjoy doing it, and then it just becomes part of a healthy lifestyle. So I'm your host, Leigh Spann. I'm a meteorologist here at WFLA. But I'm also a pretty avid runner, and over the last 13 years or so of running, I've learned a lot. And I really just kind of wanted to share that with more and more people because you didn't have to do quite the trial and error that I had to do. So if I could just help other people learn to love it as much as I do now without having to go through all of that, it's going to make everybody a little bit happier. And one of the people, of course, who taught me how to have fun with running is my coach, Coach Maria. Good morning.
Good morning, Leigh. Did you have a good Memorial Day?
I did. If you're not from the Tampa Bay area, we got a treat as far as weather is concerned. Yeah. I mean, it was low humidity, sunny skies, and not even hot. Because a lot of times when you have that lower humidity, it can also be really hot in the sunshine. Oh, yeah. I mean, we're talking, it was like mid 80s, sunny. It was a treat. And there were a lot of people out and about. I rode around on the pirate taxi throughout all of Tampa Bay waters.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What did you do? With you before?
Yeah,
that was fun.
I love the pirate taxi.
We went to a friend's house.
Okay. Did you grill out? Did you?
We did a little grilling. It's kind of it's a solemn holiday sometimes. Yeah. So, I mean, we got to remember our veterans. And my brother was in the Army, so he lost some people.
Yep.
So it's a little, we're quiet on Memorial Day.
Okay. And so I wanted to let everybody know about our Strava group. Maria is getting bigger and bigger.
I love it.
So this is, for those of you who don't know, it's our Strava is an app that you can download for free onto your phone. And then as you go out and walk and as you go out and run, then it records it all for you. So you can kind of look at how fast you went and where you went. And then it adds it up. Well, then Strava also is sort of a social media. So that's how we're using it. In the WFLA Run for Fun group, you first of all sign up for Strava, and then you can join our WFLA Run for Fun group. And right now there's 109 people who are on this.
Getting bigger every week. I love it.
And then you can look at what they're doing, and then you can ask questions. Maria and I will answer the questions again, but anybody, all of the 109 people can interact. So again, it's sort of like a social media for runners. And we wanted to celebrate over 100 members. And so as part of that, we are going to take part in Global Running Day. So that is the first Wednesday of June every year. Global Running Day there's events literally all over the globe. So and fun. We're going to host one at the Riverwalk. We're going to run the Riverwalk, and you can run or walk anywhere from, half a mile to 3 miles, whatever you want to do. And then we're going to meet right there at Stone's Throw. There's a little bar, restaurant area right at the Riverwalk. We're going to meet at 5 o'clock. So everybody sign in. It's free to go. And at 5:30, we'll start our Global Running Day. So if anybody who's listening to this show or part of our Strava group, you can join not only our Run for Fun group, but also my Loud Runners of Tampa Bay group. So we're all going to be there.
Yeah, and make sure you bring some friends. If you haven't run the Riverwalk, it's so, so beautiful. And there will be paces for everybody. There'll be runners, there'll be walkers, there'll be run walkers. So come on out.
Yes, we really, this is we love this day because it does celebrate this thing that people can do all over the world. You don't need a special, court to do it. You don't need special training necessarily. It's just we're using this day to celebrate the sport that we love, basically.
It's a great day.
It is a great day. So you look forward again. That's June 7th. So it's the first Wednesday of the first Wednesday of June every year is Global Running Day. So today we are going to talk about all the sweat that happens, right?
All the sweat.
You might have noticed that there has been a theme over the past couple of weeks. We talked about dew point. Mm-hmm. We talked about hydration and sweat rate.
Hydration.
So today it's how to wear the right clothes for the long summer heat. How to
not wear clothes, right?
Or how to not wear the least amount of clothes where you're still able to be decent and without chafing. So that's kind of our rundown for the day. And Maria, you've noticed, you grew up in the cooler climates. Did you, you had to have a wider range of clothes between the cold and the hot.
in the winter, you just keep putting clothes on. But when you're in the summer, you can't keep taking clothes off. There is a point. So you do have to find something that's not, sometimes I even have to change clothes in the middle of a run if it's a longer run and I'm sweating a ton, because it just, I'm a heavy sweater and it's miserable.
And one of the main things that you talk about is, I mean, there's been such a, the technology has improved so much on how, on the clothes that we can wear. And I mean, it was just a few years ago, I mean, maybe a decade or so, I mean, everyone was just wearing, cotton t-shirts and things like that. But
Cotton.
What do you say?
Cody always said, Cody's the one that taught me cotton is rotten.
Cotton is rotten. So speaking of, we're joined by Cody Angell, who is the owner of St. Pete Run Company. We're so glad you're here.
Good to be back.
We know, yes, we appreciate it. We always talk about going into a running store can be a little bit daunting sometimes because there's just a lot. I mean, we offer so, I mean, you guys offer so much that we wanted to bring in Cody to kind of say like, okay, if this is where you're running, here are some things to think about when you go to any running store.
Exactly. Yeah, it could be an intimidating thing. I remember I was a college runner, and the first time I went to a proper running store, I was 20, in the shape of my life, and I was nervous going in there. So I always remind our staff what that feels like, and remember what it feels like the first time you step foot into one. And the whole idea is to break down those barriers and make sure that we're not an intimidating atmosphere.
Because what is the goal?
The goal is to get people moving.
To get people moving, to get them into a healthier lifestyle. And so that's what we created this show for. And we know that's sort of your mindset as well. So we appreciate you coming on. So now let's talk a little bit about just sort of the basics. If someone has been running in their t-shirt, and their cotton shorts, what do the first thing they need to know about proper gear for the summer?
Oh, where to begin? So if the listeners are here in Florida, it's like what Maria said. You want to have probably less apparel and a technical fiber. So you think the term moisture wicking gets thrown around a lot, but moisture managing. So a synthetic type of fiber. Now we're probably going to get hate mail from the cotton industry, right? But
yeah, right.
So cotton has its purpose, maybe on the outside of some garments, but not in this humid climate. So think about it that cotton will hold 3 times its weight in sweat. And you don't want that stuck against your skin because then you lose your ventilation and then you get even hotter. So it's like you're circling the drain with your temperature management, not just moisture, but your temperature. So the end result is get an athletic-specific garment that's really thin fabric. I say that as I'm rubbing my shirt here. But, really thin fabric that lets moisture get out. So it works as a capacitor to pull moisture from your skin out into the environment where air can then hit it and hopefully make it evaporate. Not always happening here in West Florida.
It's kind of difficult, but even then it can drip off.
Right.
If you collect it, it can drip off. If you have cotton, it's just going to get heavy and hold on to everything, and it makes it miserable.
And that can actually lead to chafing, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But Cody, again, this is the third in our series of hot weather shows, starting with the dew point, starting with the fact that that when the dew point, when the humidity is high, your body, the sweat doesn't evaporate. So that's what you were saying. It's not always, even if you have this moisture wicking fabric, it's not necessarily going to always get off the clothes, but at least it can get off of your skin more. So what's the difference between cotton and these technical fabrics that work so much better?
So the fibers pull it out and out into the air, where then when air hits it, it should evaporate and subsequently cool your body down a little bit. Whereas the cotton would just hold it there, and it's kind of like running in a wet sheet, if that makes sense. So makes running uncomfortable, but on the physiological side, your body has to work harder to cool it down. And then from a performance standpoint, you'll experience decreases. So instead of supplying blood and oxygen to your running muscles, you're trying to cool yourself down. So you'll know when you get slower. And then the opposite of that, in real hot days, when people, there's studies that say when you dump ice water on your head, all of a sudden you run faster, and it's not just psychological. That's actually cooling your system down, cooling your core temperature down. And so this performance apparel is largely about cooling down your body when you're really hot.
And I know both of you guys have worked in the industry for a while now. What have you noticed that has changed with not only the types of clothes and gear that have come in, but also the mindset of people coming in to get those clothes.
Well, I think now people, tell me if you agree, Maria, like people seem like they see the value in it now. Like you said a while back, maybe not.
And there's
so
a
much.
lot more talk about it. So people are buying, even with hydration stuff, they're buying bottles and stuff to carry with them. So, that's a big difference I've noticed. Like back when I was running, we just didn't carry stuff with us. And we didn't have the apparel.
Right.
So it just wasn't, I'm thankful I didn't live in Florida back then because that would have been really bad. But there's just more to offer now.
Yeah, and I wanted to quickly talk about what we're seeing now versus what we will see. Right now, like some things, the leggings, those aren't selling as much regardless of the seasonality. I think everybody's got a couple good pairs, and you wear them when you're not running is what we're seeing a lot of. But what is on fire right now are the, they're called bike shorts, and you don't actually bike in them. So like leggings that are cut with a 7-inch or a 5-inch seam. And that's what the ladies are all running in now.
Yeah, because that prevents chafing, yeah.
Yeah, so some things you look for would be obviously a fabric that sits nice against your skin. And then one way to tell if they've invested some time and resources into making this is look at the seams. And if the seams are flat or what they call flat lock stitched, they spend a little more money making those tights. And there's a much lower chance that you'll chafe. And then from a function standpoint, I love that the consumers are looking for pockets now.
Yes.
To carry your phone.
Yeah.
Because you got to take a selfie, right? When you're out
Yeah.
running.
And you have to have your Strava.
You got to put it on Strava.
And you need, and you actually it's safe. It's a safety
Yes.
issue now to bring your phone.
And
Yes.
so that was one thing that I did want to talk about with both of you. It is tight fitting clothes. What I usually tell people as a meteorologist is I say, on a hot day, wear loose fitting, lightweight clothes. Is that the same for runners? Because again, some of the more compression can help with chafing. So where are you looking for to have where it's not necessary, where it's easy, where it helps you with chafing, but it's not so thick and so tight that it actually holds that heat in?
So it depends on what feels comfortable to that individual. But in general, I think that's great. Like below the belly button, tighter fitting. So you reduce the chances you'll get chafed. And then above the belly button, loose, flowy, for ventilation, so air can go in and the hot air can escape and leave our body. I did want to say, you see ads for like cooling fabrics. That like, when you sweat, it gets colder and it cools your skin down. They even have like thermometers, and that actually works in an arid environment, but not here.
Ding, 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 ding,
That's
ding.
the difference.
Yeah, so that was, again, if you have it, the required listening for this is to go back and listen to that dew point one, because it, as Maria says, you can't beat science. And if the air is so saturated with humidity, then the sweat on your body doesn't evaporate. And there's a process called evaporative cooling, and you have to not only sweat, but that sweat has to evaporate, and that literally pulls heat out because you're going from a state of liquid to a state of gas. And so to do that, you have to take energy from something. So you need that evaporation. And when the air is saturated, the sweat just sits right on top of you. So yes, those cooling fabrics are perfect if they can get the sweat off your skin and then immediately be whisked away by the wonderful, dry, cool, breezy conditions. But we always have to be just a little bit more careful in Florida, which is why we were saying that the Dew Point show is required listening if you're going to try
And
to
you're spending a lot of money on something that's just not going to work.
True.
Here. So save yourself a couple bucks.
Yes, but there are things that you should definitely be doing. And one of the things, too, to think about is, some shade. And whether that be
Makes a huge difference.
your hat. I mean, like if you're wearing a hat over your face. But even, Maria, we talked about a long sleeve typed shirt because then you're not getting the sun right on
You're not getting, honestly, the best, we're going to talk about this next week, but like going at a time when the sun's not out makes a huge difference in how you can stay cooler. Cody talked about ice, carrying ice in your hands can help. I actually do change my clothes. I know that's crazy, but if I have a 15-mile run, I change my clothes halfway.
And that's even with the no cut. So like your clothes are going to
or
be
sometimes my
holding water
shoes too, because it's just, the shoes are great now. They have great shoes, but there's nothing when it's 74 dew point. There's not a whole lot you can do.
Not a whole lot you can do. So
And don't be afraid to wear a sports bra if you're a girl. Like it makes a huge difference to have your stomach out and cooler. And you don't have, I know we're self-conscious, but like it's okay. You're running.
Right. You're being active. You should appreciate that. And so, but again, speaking of that, I guess like that's what you have to go with, what is more comfortable to you, not just in your, that you feel comfortable in your brain, but like if you're out there and the sun is beating down on your stomach, then maybe a very light tank top might be better because it's not getting that sun to beat right on it. But if you're going out when the sun hasn't yet to rise or in the evening, then it can be delightful. So again, you have to keep in mind what you're going through, what your process is, and then what feels what actually feels better.
If you wear the tighter fitted pants when you're running, be sure to take them off afterwards, right after.
Go ahead, tell them why.
It's very important because girls can get yeast infections and stuff like that if you don't, especially in this humid climate. So just be sure that you change them because they aren't loose fitted and it's going to stay moist. And we don't want that. I said that yucky word.
Could
moist.
I elaborate on the?
You most certainly can.
You're going to say moist. Don't use that word, Cody.
I'm talking about the fabric side of things. So, I learned from one of the compression companies. So, say your compression tights, they have an odometer on them, just like your car. Not really, but they're made to last about 500 hours of sweat.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, if you sweat for an hour running, and then that counts 1 hour, right? You're down to 499. But then if you do like me and take them off and leave them in a sweaty pile on the floor in your bedroom and for 7 hours before it dries, that also counts against the lifespan. So what they're actually saying, which makes so much sense, is to get the sweat out ASAP. So take them in the shower with you. And,
really?
I wouldn't run your soap through it, but just run the shower head on it and get the sweat out and then throw them in the wash. And what that'll do is it'll ensure better longevity of that product that you probably paid a lot of money for.
Yes, for sure.
And this is specifically for compression because those fibers need to be held tightly together. Is that the reason behind it?
Exactly. Sweat's pretty damaging.
Yeah.
And your fabric can lose its tensile strength and it's no longer compressive. Now, from a visual standpoint, like sometimes the leggings, they kind of get see-through. That's another way to tell too. So certainly when you're done.
That's from sweat? They get see-through from
sweat and just the fabric losing its tensile strength for sure. Yeah.
That's not good.
So since we're on this, the subject of compression, why would someone even choose to get a compression short or pant versus just leggings that don't have that extra compression?
I love this stuff. I got married in compression.
Did you really?
under the
That's
tux.
not shocking to me.
They wouldn't
Cody.
let me wear it on the outside.
It's just not shocking.
They or your wife wouldn't.
Yeah.
She's they.
Yeah.
Yeah. They well, a couple of reasons. Like if you're injured, it holds the area tighter, and so there's not as much jostling. If you just don't want as much jostling, there's not as much jostling. And it brings blood flow to the area. So, I mean, what else would you say about compression?
Blood flow is the big one.
Yeah.
Moving fluid around. It's hard to nail it down with a study for performance benefits during running because you can't just rewind and go back in time. But they've got a lot of stuff out there that says you recover much faster in it. And so running, the name of the game is not just stressing your body, as I've heard you say, stress and then recovery. So there are studies that validate as soon as you're done training, maybe put compression on, or if I'm having a big week, I'd actually sleep in them, and you feel just a little bit fresher the next day.
Is that because it's bringing that blood flow and kind of helping that recovery a little bit better? Interesting. Yeah, because
you're only as strong as your recovery.
Yeah.
It's honestly.
So even if someone doesn't want to exercise in them, they should still invest in some sort of compression to help with the long-term part.
Yes.
And the study that does show that compression works is if you think you're faster because of compression socks, then you are.
Yeah.
So because the only reason that I do wear
a placebo effect.
Yeah, I do wear compression socks when I run. A lot of people on my social media will be like, "Why do you wear such crazy socks?" And my thing is, I don't know that it makes me feel any faster, but it definitely keeps my feet from swelling. And on longer distances,
absolutely.
I used to first of all, my toes would hurt, and that's how I would start to lose toenails, is because my feet would swell in the shoes. So I have noticed, It's not. It still swells some, but it's not nearly as bad. And I imagine that's just because it's continuing to move that blood flow around a little bit better, so it's not all just pooling down in my feet. Which again, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show is so you don't have to make all of the trial and error problems that we all went through. We can just tell you what to do. And so that's why I brought in Maria and Cody to continue to tell us all what to do.
Actually, Cody, I have a question for you. And I was getting my toenails done last week, and the lady said, "Oh, are you a runner?" I said, "Yes, I'm a runner." I said, "How could you tell?" She said, "You have strong calves." I said, "Oh, that's interesting. I figured it would be from my feet." And she said, "No, you actually have very pretty feet for a runner. The runners that I see all have no toenails."
Ooh.
Yeah.
I know. And so I do have a couple runners that still lose their toenails. But my question is it just inevitable for some people that are just run up on their toes a little bit more, or can that be prevented? Because I've lost a couple toenails, but it hasn't been like a thing that in all the years of running, I don't usually lose toenails.
Good question. So when I started working in running stores nearly 20 years ago, it was lore at that point that if you ran a marathon, you were going to lose at least one toenail. It's not that way now.
No. Okay.
So fabrics have advanced, the knowledge base has advanced, and you get shoes that are a little bit bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So if you wear a size 8 in a dress shoe, it's very realistic you would be a 9 in an athletic shoe. And in that...
He's calling me out because those are my sizes.
Yeah,
I feel like my feet are big.
I'm pointing at you. No,
But if you just turn the box around, it looks like a 6. So
yes. And then
so what are my 10 and a half and 11 shoes? Yeah. Like my uncle, when I was growing up, said that I should stop buying the shoes and just start wearing the boxes because I as a 10-year-old, I had basically the same size feet I do now. And everyone's like, well, you'll eventually grow into them. I did. And I grew into my 9 and a half to 10. And then I started running. And now it's like, oh, now I have to wear an 11. And so I'm back to just wearing the boxes. But that's okay. I'm losing fewer and fewer toenails with the compression and the big and the bigger shoes. And plus, the toe boxes. I mean, the front part of the shoe it has changed so much.
Oh yeah, so the uppers of shoes, even into the front, used to have what were called overlays, and it was basically really thick straps.
Yeah, I remember that
were sewn in, and then the stitching would be up against your foot on the backside, on the inside of the shoe. You could run your hand inside the shoe and feel around and just feel exactly where the stitches were. You didn't have to. You could feel it. Now, a lot of the uppers, there's no overlays, and they're 3D printed on. So if you run your hand inside, it feels really smooth.
Yeah.
So that's been one advancement. So people talk about the midsoles of footwear that's come a long way, but the uppers have just gotten so much better. In our store, we don't see lost toenails like we used to.
Right.
And I think when you have like the real bad blisters or toe trauma, 80% of the time that can be attributed to sock wear. So it's not just the shoes or the size. It's the socks that you're actually wearing.
Oh, interesting.
So, and I even wrote that. So, correct socks. So, as part of the things that you need to always think about with the heat. So, what are correct socks? What are the socks that are going to keep you not only from, maybe blisters because of the wetness in socks, but then also losing toenails?
So, I think some of the common denominators you need to look for with good socks is flip the label over and read the ingredient list. And again, we've said it before, but try to avoid cotton there because your feet, most of us, our feet sweat more than our armpits do. So the sock works to extract the sweat from your skin and put it into the shoe. In an ideal scenario, in a humid environment, you get done running, your socks are relatively dry, but the tongue of your shoe might be wet. And that means the socks are doing their job. It needs to be against the skin and snug and not like moving around within there. But as a bonus, if it cannot pull your toes real tight together, like your foot shouldn't be shaped like a canoe in the front.
Okay.
So it should be compression through the arch and through the midfoot and maybe around the Achilles tendon. But in the front, you should be able to wiggle your toes without those things being like sucked in together. And the price of socks, now we're selling more than we ever have, but they're $18.
They're insane.
Yeah.
But I'd say it's
They'll
an
turn you
investment.
into a sock snob really quickly.
Totally.
Real fast. Real fast. Because
They're such nice socks now.
I mean, and the difference between, just even if you bought athletic socks that are not cotton, when you buy real running socks, the difference is pretty fast where you're just like, well, I guess I spend $20 on socks now. I mean, it's just what it is.
And now they have right foot and left foot socks.
Oh, yes.
So you have to be, and actually I did this with my family because we're all athletic, and I started buying specific colors for each family member so that we just knew that those are Sam's socks, those are Abby's socks, those are, like, then we keep them all organized because you don't want to lose $20 socks.
It's a good mom hack right there. Make sure and so they don't mix the two, and so one person can't find theirs because they're in somebody else's drawer.
There's no fighting.
Yeah.
Hey, so one of the things I wanted to mention with socks is it's an investment that we should make probably every time you get a new pair of shoes, get a good pair of socks, and then throw out an old pair, right, or donate them. But if you get premium stuff, just like with the apparel, get premium stuff and take care of it, you won't have to replace it as frequently. So you go get some really cheap socks and you sweat through them 10 or 15 times, and they've lost their tensile strength. They're stretchy, and before you know it, they're sliding down into your heel while you're out moving around. Whereas a good pair, take care of it. And what I mean by that is wash it, but do not dry them. So the fabric is porous, and that's how sweat and moisture get out, and that's how air can get in. And those pores can clog with putting them in the dryer or with fabric softeners. So, and most of the time these things dry so fast.
That's the same with the apparel too, right?
Yes. Yeah. Don't put them in the dryer. And I know, like, it's easy and habitually you just chuck them in there, but they'll last much longer. And I think the future of an apparel consumer should encapsulate what goes on with this apparel after we're done with it. We talk about sustainability. Customers aren't there yet, but they're kind of interested in it. But I think in 10 years, they're going to be saying, what do I do with this when I'm done wearing it? Is it going to break down in the landfill? Do I just throw it in a recycle bin? But I think to get it to last longer is the first step. And so don't trash your apparel. Like, get the sweat out and then wash it. And this stuff's going to dry just as fast hanging up as it would in the dryer. You'll be stunned by how quickly it dries.
And it doesn't shrink or any of that stuff either.
Yeah.
That's a very good tip, because when I used to, with my compression socks, I would not dry them. And I've been recently just throwing them in the dryer like, well, it can't be that much of a difference. So I'm glad that I at least thought it a good idea. And now I will go back to
Whipping you back in shape.
Yeah,
Leigh.
exactly. I mean, I just thought, well, it doesn't seem to be doing that much different. But I spend a lot of money on these compression socks. Like they are also not cheap. So
Cody, from the sweat, do the shoes wear out faster?
I would say the insole can wear out a lot faster, and the upper, the outsole, it usually doesn't play a factor on the midsole or the outsole.
Yeah. So tell me what all those mean.
Okay, so good question. So if you just stick your hand inside your shoe, the stuff you can touch in there, that the sweat could play a big role in the deterioration of that part, but not the foamy stuff that you're standing on, like your mattress, and not the rubber stuff underneath. But yeah, so the sweat could, on really sweaty days, it's a good idea maybe even take the sole out and just spray them off with a water hose and let them air dry, just to get the sweat out, because sweat's pretty damaging.
Like I was going to say that. So there's a difference between like a shoe getting wet and a shoe and sweat. Sweat is because it has all the salt and all of it's actually going to break it down more than just being wet. Is that correct?
That's right. And when your name is Leigh, you sweat excellence too. So there's a lot of chemicals.
Exactly. Clearly, I don't want to keep all that. I don't want to put that in my shoes.
But the answer is yeah. So sweat can be pretty damaging. And an interesting thing I learned from the physiological side of it that I want to share with you guys is, as we live this life more and we run and exercise more, we sweat more.
Yeah.
We become better at sweating because our body basically gets better at turning the air conditioning on.
Absolutely.
You would think we just we're better running and we've been doing it a long time. We don't need as much sweat, but it's the opposite. Yeah. So I sweat much more now than I did 10 or 15 years ago. Are you guys like that too?
Me too. I sweat a ton more than I used to.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, the better it's what your cooling process is meant to do, get more efficient.
Right.
Which means you sweat more.
Yes. And that's why we, need to make sure that we're wearing the proper clothes to facilitate that. Because if you were just wearing the same old clothes that you wore, before, or were running for years ago, the fact that you would do all this hard work to do all this running and then wear a cotton shirt and then just add that extra, weight and the chafing part of cotton. So again, your body's going to get better, and you need to also facilitate that some with what you're wearing. And I wanted to talk a little bit. I know. Go ahead. I was going to talk about chafing.
No, yeah, I just had one more question
Yeah.
for Cody. With the, is there, our clothes can sweat and it smells stinky even after you wash them. Do you suggest anything to get that to go away, the stinky smell? Did you notice that, or is that just my clothes?
Yeah, so the more premium the fabric, usually the better it gets. Like,
Okay.
or usually it doesn't start to stink until much later. Again, taking them in the shower, washing them out, and getting the sweat out ASAP is a good way too. And then this sounds weird, but smell, and if it smells like ammonia, that's probably you. That's probably a question for you and your dietitian, but it might be a protein thing.
Yeah, because you're burning proteins at that point.
More of a muscle tissue
yeah,
cannibalization,
you need
right?
probably more carbohydrates when you're running.
Yeah. So, so smell your clothes. If it smells like ammonia, that's realistically that's what that could be.
What do you want it to smell like?
Excellence. We talked about.
Yeah.
I just mean like that. Sometimes it just in the washer when you wash it, it just doesn't come out quite as well, and it gets that like sweaty.
Yes, but I mean, but if
smell.
it's not supposed to smell like ammonia, because ammonia means you're burning too much protein, before you wash it, is there a smell we should be looking for?
Well, they have those new fabric softeners, like I guess detergent now they have. I don't know if they
The
work
sport
or not. Do you have
detergents,
sport detergents? Have you ever used
Sport
them?
detergent's designed specifically for that type of fabric.
Yeah.
And so if you could get that usually does a better. In my experience, I've had to almost double the dose to really get
okay.
it clean. And then the these really cool little detergent strips where it's like a piece of paper that you tear off, and that's your works good for regular apparel, but sport apparel it didn't get it where it didn't freshen them up enough.
Yeah.
So stick with like a more of like a sport detergent. I think it was called Sport Wash back in the day.
Yeah, I think so. But I haven't ever used it, so.
And Cody, I know you wanted to talk about sports bras specifically, right?
Yeah. Can I just get this off my chest?
You can just get it off your chest.
Couple things about sports bras. It's the second most important piece of equipment that a female runner would need, right? And it's overlooked. It's not talked about. There's even a stigma about talking about it when you go into a running store, and there shouldn't be. The people in there talk about bras every day, all day, so you might as well bring up the conversation. And we tell our staff, like, don't be afraid to ask them. So engage, educate people about the importance of bras. But a couple bullet points that I think our listeners need to know. Well, probably 50% of our listeners need to know.
Yeah.
No, isn't there more than aren't women more
They're
than
more than
50%? So it's
50%
more than
runners
50%
now.
runners.
Right.
So
65% of the customers in a running store are female now.
Yeah.
So there we go. Number one, your sports bras shouldn't see a birthday. So they lose their
Isn't
tension.
that-
Right. We hired a lady years ago. I won't say her name. It's not you. But she's like, I've had the same bra since high school. I'm like, lady, you're 30 years old. Like, so
Yeah.
they every year on your birthday throw out your bras because they lose their support and their tensile strength with the sweat and things like that, and get 3 new ones. And the reason 3 is you need to have one to wear, one in your dresser ready to go, and probably realistically one in your laundry, right? So have that rotation going. There's a ligament there called, I believe it's called the Cooper's ligament, and when she stretches, she ain't coming back, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you need to support those things, especially for high impact things like running. The second piece, and I'm sure you've heard this in your running group or with the loud runners, people asking for recommendations on bras, and it drives me crazy. It's like asking for recommendations on shoes.
Yeah.
Well, what works for Maria doesn't work for Leigh, or vice versa, whatever it is. So you should go get fit for a sports bra and get your measurements.
We
and
did
get
a lot
one
of
that
those
fits
in the
you.
store.
Oh, tons of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will be completely honest. I have never heard of that before.
I've been the bad run coach if I have not mentioned that, Leigh.
Sorry. And if you did, it went in and like,
No,
you know,
I'm sure
it's-
I don't mention it enough. I should probably mention it
again,
more.
13 years of running, and this is the first time hearing about it. So you're welcome to everyone listening who now knows this thing that I didn't know until now. So in getting fit for a sports bra, is it the same as a regular bra, like with a tape measure and all this thing? Or like what is this going
similar.
to go into if someone, because this may feel, again, if someone else didn't know and you go into a running store, even more overwhelming is them saying like, let me measure your boobs. So, right?
Well,
So-
and it's sports bras are sometimes they can feel like they're hard to get on.
right.
So people tend to go for ones that are pull on over the head, but those are actually harder to get off after.
Oh, yes.
And if it's fitting properly, then it doesn't really matter if it takes a little extra time, because nobody wants to be saggy. Like, it really makes a huge difference. And it also can be painful if you're not in the right bra because you're bouncing too much.
Yeah, so it should be kind of hard to put on.
Yeah, it
isn't
should
right?
be hard to put on a little bit.
And so again, what will they expect if I'm getting fitted for a sports bra? What will I expect there?
Well, first off, don't be afraid to talk to somebody about it. And
Yeah,
say, like,
for sure.
I go to the bank and I would ask a question, and they have these conversations all day. And for them, it's no big deal. Same thing with getting fit for athletic attire. And tell them what activity you're doing, because if it's spin class, it might be a different bra requirement than training for a half marathon or a marathon. So do that, and then you would get measured, and then you would need to try those on. And then we tell people to jump up and down in them and run in them, wear them around the store, and that kind of thing.
And the other interesting thing that I actually learned at Cody's store, we had somebody come in and teach us how to do it.
Yeah.
But the little clasps in the back, you shouldn't put it on the tightest one right away. It should be on the loosest one, and that's because it loses elasticity over time. So then you get it tighter the next time, and then tighter the next time. So
And then throw it away a year
then
later.
you throw it away once you can't clip it anymore.
Yeah.
And so, because again, problems I don't necessarily always have.
Yeah.
But there are sports bras with things in the back, or because I've only ever put on just one that goes over the head. So there are ones that fit
and
in the
they
back.
have ones that fit over the shoulders too, like to make it tighter. And the less movement you have, the less likely you are to chafe.
Okay.
So it's not just about bouncing; it's about chafing and all that stuff. So you really got to pay attention to all the moving parts.
And there's two different types of bras. You can almost drop them into two categories. One would be a compression bra. So think of that as like almost a really tight-fitting crop top that just kind of squeezes the girls. And then the other one would be encapsulation. And that was each girl has their own pocket there. And you kind of bend over and get them in the right spot and then stand up and pull the straps up. Now, every body type should be celebrated. I mean, it's your body. It's a gift.
Absolutely.
And be proud of it. But get one that fits you, and you'll notice a pretty significant difference.
And again, these have really evolved over time
Yes.
too. When I was nursing Abby and trying to run, I had to wear 3 sports bras because there wasn't anything that was strong enough to hold me in where I felt comfortable running. And we've now got sports bras that are very well fitting and can get you you might have to look a little bit, but ask around, ask people that have similar chest sizes to you, ask them what brands they like, and then go try them on.
Yeah, but that's the thing.
Yeah.
Is don't just go and order it
No,
online.
don't go and order it online. Go try them on.
Yes, or
Yeah.
if you do, you might just be out of lots
You're just
of
going to mail
money.
it back. There's
Yeah.
a 75% chance you're mailing that thing back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other thing with bras, it used to be you thought those who needed a lot of support there, they would have to have a wire in their athletic bra. And now the wires are still there, but a lot of times you don't need the wired bra anymore because the fabrics are so good and they're learning how to make them. And the other question we get a whole lot is there used to be a bra brand called Moving Comfort that everybody loved. It had a cult following. They were really great bras, and they sort of disappeared. And you should know Brooks, the shoe company, the same company that makes your footwear, they bought that company and took them in-house. So what used to be called Moving Comfort are now called Brooks bras. And they're not cheap. I mean, you're looking at $65.
But they are worth every penny.
Yeah.
They are worth every penny.
Well, because your girls are worth all of it. So
yeah,
whatever.
and it makes it much more comfortable to run.
Yeah.
And you don't have the uniboob thing going on anymore because we used to have that going on when there was just one type of sports bra, and now you can really look normal when you're running. They've improved so much. It's really nice.
And then back to your question earlier with the fit, if you get one that's a band size and a cup size, like a 32C or whatever it is, usually that would get you a more specific and more dialed in fit than a medium or a small. So try that. And then to the listeners, remember, because you were a 32D your senior year of high school doesn't mean you're still that. Like, our bodies change. So it's important, just like your feet change. So get measured at least once a year just to make sure that you're wearing the right bra.
Every birthday, right? And then get ready. Like, you know what to ask for from mom and whoever else. Like, I need 3 sports bras. Happy
There you
birthday to
go.
me. And then and if you're not would you recommend donating the ones you've only worn for a year, Cody? Because if someone else could use them, or do you just think this is one that just has to go?
It wouldn't be used for running for
Right.
you. So
Yeah.
I hate throwing things away.
Yeah.
So I would say if you could donate it, because some people really need that stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Same goes with shoes, off the topic, right? But more and more people are donating their used running shoes because
They could be used for other things.
and they go to third world countries where they don't have footwear, period. And so it's a significant. Imagine the way we all felt when we got our first real pair of running shoes.
Yeah.
And imagine a kid in East Africa that gets his first real pair of running shoes. And then he's going to be beating us in all the races.
Yeah, of course he is.
Yeah, same sort. So same thing applies with the
Yeah.
bras. If you could donate those, I think that'd be a really special thing to do.
And do you to donate shoes and things like that? Is there a place we can go if someone's interested in that to donate? Like, where do we send our?
Cody
shoes?
does it at the store.
That's what I was going to say. Do
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I mean, if you're in St. Pete, come to St. Pete Running Company. We have we're filling up a big box almost every week now.
Okay, wonderful.
So it's really cool to see, and probably a third of that comes from our employees. You would not believe the amount of shoes these guys
Yeah.
have. And,
yeah, I can't because I look in my own closet.
Yeah.
Exactly how many shoes. There.
I can imagine that, Cody. I don't know why.
yeah, and then another one. If those of you listening, look up something called the More Foundation, MORE Foundation, and see where their drop boxes are. And those are really good too. And sort of the model, real quick, the model of how it works is they end up in third world countries where they sell them to street vendors who then sell them to a new user. But with the money they get from the street vendors, almost all of that goes directly into agriculture. So it digs a well for a farm, or it teaches a family how to grow a sustainable farm, buys them trees, seeds, chickens. So your shoes, they don't need to be in the landfill. They take forever to break down in the landfill, whereas this would be just such a cool thing, and that's called repurposing.
There's More Foundation. So we can-
MORE, yeah.
And sometimes they use them, not that company, but some other companies use them to like make new surfaces of
Yeah.
tracks and
yeah, I've had that-
rubberized playgrounds.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
that- yeah. So
yeah.
as
There's
you-
a lot that can be done with them.
as
Don't
you
throw them away.
Continue to your healthy lifestyle, you will go through many shoes, you will go through many sports bras, and so a little bit more sustainable, a little bit more thinking about what to do with them when they're done. So that's excellent. One last thing we'll talk about is anti-chafing stuff to buy, because even with the best clothes and the the wicking, the moisture wicking and all that, in this heat, in this humidity, it's real likely
You're going
to chafe.
Yeah.
And you might get caught out in a thunderstorm, and then you're likely going to chafe. So what kind of things should we be looking for when we go into the running store for that?
An old remedy was Vaseline. I think this stuff called Body Glide works much better because it's more breathable. And Body Glide actually gets down in there. It doesn't just stay on the surface of the skin. So even like when I'll do a triathlon, I'll put it all over my feet, go swim, and it's still there for when you're wearing shoes sockless, and I haven't had any trouble with blisters. So it's called Body Glide. If you're really a heavy chafer, then I would say you could even turn your tights and stuff inside out before your long runs and wipe it on the seams, and that could reduce the probability. And then I like to put it between my legs, around the heel and toes on my long runs, and then kind of under my armpits.
Yeah,
I don't know if
that's-
girls, do you
that-
put it on the
that's,
sports bra? You put it on the
I put
bra
it on the
line?
sports bra line. I do it under my arms. I do all the private places.
In between the
Like,
legs,
it's really
like all the
just-
way down the whole inner thigh.
Yeah.
And at Body Glide, by the way, it looks like deodorant. If you're looking for what it looks like, it just looks like a little tube of deodorant. So you can,
Yeah, it's $12, and
Yeah.
it's like a huge insurance policy to keep you going. And I do
Because
remember
chafing can really stop you from running. It can stop and make it very uncomfortable to run.
And then there's when you didn't really know that you were chafing, and then you get in the shower and the water hits it.
Yeah.
It is like fire has hit that spot, even though you
it's
didn't even know,
terrible.
didn't even hurt while you were running, and all of a sudden you think, why is my arm on fire when the water hits it? So we want to stop that as much as possible.
it's called chasing the dream, not chafing the dream,
Right.
ladies.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So they're, on top of all these types of clothes, you're spending $60, $80, $90 on some clothes. You can buy a $12 thing of Body Glide and continue again, adding to the lack of chafing.
Yeah, I remember when we lived in Australia, the Aussies would do Vaseline, and they would put it in their belly button, and then they could reapply halfway through their
Oh,
run.
wow.
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 That is using every part of your body.
Wow.
These were the old days. They would on the bike in triathlons, they would take, remember the old power bars that were like these
Yes.
flat process? They would lick those and stick them on the top tube of their bike. And then when they were riding in the Ironman, they just peel part of it off and eat it. And I'm like, man, you have gels. I mean, we have like pockets now.
We
like,
have pockets.
They're hardcore, those Aussies, though. So every Aussie I've ever had has been so hardcore.
And I remember managing a shop down there, and the ladies didn't care about getting measured for bras. They'd be, yeah, come back here, help me out here. You know, the Americans are a little more modest, but the other,
for sure.
the Australians didn't care much. They're like, yeah, can you help me out here? I'm like, sure.
Yeah, sure. All right. All right. So we were talking about chafing, Maria. You have your coach's drill today.
My coach's drill today.
And it's still 3 minutes. You feel free to talk as long as you like, but
it-
for
you
not
know-
longer than 3 minutes.
I've never made it to 3 minutes.
You haven't made
yet.
it to 3 minutes yet. So over the summer, we're gonna make this harder.
We're going to make
but-
it harder for me.
Yes,
A
but
1
this
minute
is-
drill. But right now we're 3 minutes.
Yes, for those, the reason that one of the reasons we started this is because my coach has a lot of thoughts on things.
I do.
and and
a
if you've
lot of
ever run next to her, or sat next to her, or I don't know, met her, she has some thoughts on things.
I'm opinionated on things. There's no doubt.
And she'll tell you. She'll tell
Yeah,
you.
she will tell you. So we gave her this and thinking that we'll give her some time and she can say her piece. So today we're going to kind of going off this topic a little bit. We're talking about chafing, that it can happen to everyone. So I'm going to let Maria take it away with today's coach's 3 minute drill.
Oh, 3 minutes. Can I waste a few seconds first? I really just want to hear the whistle part. That's the problem. Anyway, the chafing thing is there's a narrative going around about women needing to lose weight, and the reason they're chafing is because they need to lose weight. And I'm here to tell you that is just not true. It's not true. Everybody chafes. Everybody chafes if they don't have the right gear, if they don't have the right shoes, if they're in a humid climate. And sometimes even when you put Body Glide on and you do all the right things, you're still going to chafe. Sometimes you do. Our bodies move. Our skin moves up and down. It's why in race pictures, sometimes we get a little crazy because they don't look as pretty as we think they do, or they should. It's because our bodies are moving, and with that comes chafing, and it's just part of the process. And it doesn't mean you need to lose weight. It doesn't mean that you're too heavy. Just run and wear the right things. Really, that's it. That's all I got.
So that's
today.
right. So because there are so many, especially in the humid climate. That's just why we're all. This is again a 3-part series about heat and humidity. Is that it's going to happen. And it doesn't matter how.
It doesn't matter who you are. And
Yeah.
I am so tired of this. Oh, I'm chafing because I'm fat. I've heard it on so many good group runs. Like, oh, I've gained some weight, so I'm chafing. I'm like, no, you're just chafing. And it's warm out. It's humid out. Let's be kinder to our bodies. Let's not call ourselves fat. Let's not call ourselves overweight. Let's not say that we can't run because we're chafing because we're fat. Like, I'm so tired of that. I don't want to hear it anymore. Everybody chafes. It's a thing.
Why don't you guys talk? Explain why people chafe. Like that. Just
there's
literally.
skin moving and rubbing, and you're like I mean, yes, you can have more or less chafing, and weight does matter in terms of that, but it's not directly correlated to being overweight. It's not a thing. You just need to use Body Glide better.
Because you skin rubbing together.
Yeah,
that's
skin rubbing together.
If you ran with your arms straight up and down, you might not chafe, but that would also be very inefficient.
Right. So skin rubbing together or skin rubbing against the seams if they're not in the right spot. So remember the movie Karate Kid, and you think Mr. Miyagi where he'd like slap his hands together and rub and get that like friction and get it really warm.
Yeah, it's friction.
That's sort of what's happening when you run. And running's such a dynamic thing. There's so many pulleys and so many levers that every now and then, my armpit's going to rub against the side of my rib cage, or the inside of my legs are going to run together, or even your toes sometimes can squish together. So for me and for most of us, it's well worth it to be a runner, but let's just put ourselves in the best position to succeed by using these products.
Absolutely. And you might have to find different apparel. Like, I like apparel that runs down lower here, because then I don't rub the seam. If it's If it's higher, then I tend to chafe there. So I won't buy that anymore. And it might be different. My form's different than Cody's form. Your form is different than my form. We might need to wear different things based on our form and how and what's rubbing on what.
A quick story on I got some a new cycling kit, and it's a mesh base layer that you wear, and it's fishnet basically. And I met my wife at this trendy coffee shop out on St. Pete Beach. I come clicking in, and I had a fishnet shirt on when it was
Interesting.
unzipped.
I really wish I could
Very
have seen
sexy.
that, Cody.
She had this look on her face, and I've known her half my life, and she was like, "Can you just zip up your shirt?" So, but it's in.
Were you wearing her pink sunglasses too? Because I really would have liked that.
I think I was. But
I love when he wears Janice sunglasses. It's
But
my
I guess
favorite.
the point is the super thin fabrics in a humid subtropical climate where we are here is really good for
Yes.
ventilation. And then the dead air on the outside of the fishnet actually it actually helps evaporate faster. So sometimes you're actually drier wearing that than you would be if just like a regular fabric. But it comes at a
maybe.
cost of
I
cosmetics.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna need it. We should have had a picture of that.
Yeah. Next time.
Next time, Cody.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us again for this episode of Proper Workout Clothes for the Summer Heat. Cody has all the answers at St. Pete Running Company, but there's also tons of local running stores around the area. Don't be afraid to go in. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yes, ask
Don't be afraid to
questions.
get a new sports bra and talk about sports bras and talk about chafing. These are all things that we all deal with, and that's what we're kind of opening that up for everyone.
And runners love to talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
They'll love to talk about it with you. Anybody in a running store, if they're a runner, they will love to talk to you about it. So
They will
ask
tell
them
you-
questions.
They will tell you how often they chafe and where it happens.
Exactly.
So, all right. Well, thank you guys. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye-bye.